This week is definitely a guitar cast episode. In past weeks, I've had other musicians on who aren't guitar players, but this week I have a very fine and very well-known Australian guitar player, Mr. Jamie Clark. How are you, mate? Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Folks, for those of you who don't know Jamie, Jamie's had over 40 years of professional experience as a teacher, a professional performer, a music arranger. Notably, you've played with Kate Miller-Heidke, Katie Noonan, Deborah Conway. You spent a lot of time with Women in Voice.
Yep. That's where I did a lot of work with those guys.
A lot of work, yeah. You are the National Flatpick Bluegrass Champion.
Oh, I was.
Was?
I don't know, how long ago is that now? 10 or 12 years ago or something?
That's still a...
but it lasted a year or something. It's all right.
Hey, mate, that's a trophy.
One of my few music trophies, yeah.
And you've also been the guitar teacher at the Conservatorium for almost 30 years.
I know.
I remember standing in the car park at the John Schofield Clinic back in 2008. There was like 100 guitar players in the car park. We were waiting. And I walked up to you and said, "How you going, Jamie?" You said, "Yeah, really good. I think I've taught every guitar player sitting here at the moment." Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but I've come in contact with a lot of guitar players. And, it's always really good to see them doing well or to have, kept going on it or built careers. Well,
you had a big hand in that. I've spoken to past guests on here about the Conservatorium. About how hard it was being there, but how it really did take our playing to that next level. I don't think any lesson was ever comfortable or fun. And I think that's a good thing, because at that level, when you're trying to push for growth, there needs to be pressure.
Well, there's a pressure in the place anyway. I certainly never tried to make people uncomfortable. But,
so you made me feel very comfortable.
No. But I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's just this... There is a pressure in it, in a way. I mean, I was always trying at least not to be an idiot. Just sort of show a younger musician that, older musicians aren't idiots. I found when I was quite young, a lot of the older musicians, I don't know, they could be mean.
Okay.
They could be a little nuts.
Yep.
A combination of.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, at least I've got to try, even if people don't want to take on board what I'm saying.
Right.
I've got to at least try to be someone who's okay personally.
Yeah.
So that was sort of a big part of that too.
Yeah. And
then also, after a while, you start realizing, well, the way you improve is just to keep setting mild challenges for yourself.
Yeah.
So would be what it is with lessons, that people come in and I go, well, come on, we're going to play something together.
Yeah.
And even just that kind of slightly heightened moment for people is a useful thing, because, you're not just going to sit there and have info shoveled at you and be told, oh, you're terrible and you'll never be any good. It's just pointless. It's like, we're going to play something and, yes, you can do this.
Yes.
Try to keep a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think many guitar players feel like it took quite a while to get their head around, how do I play over these changes and be musical?
Mm-hmm.
Because with jazz, guitar players have this trap when we're growing up learning metal and rock that we know where to put our fingers, but a lot of us, unless we sort of did classical when we were younger, don't really understand what we're doing. But then the jazz guitar was sort of like starting from scratch, where it became a real mental thing you have to think about. All of a sudden, I've got to know the fretboard and know where the notes are. I've always found that challenging.
It's a challenge for everybody. Yeah. And I don't know, you can start exploring just how you learn yourself.
Right.
I think that's the thing to do. That most people who go forward with it eventually go, well, okay, I'm seeing in books that I should do this, or I saw in instructional videos I should do this, or I saw on YouTube's I should do this.
Yeah.
But does that work for me? For where I am now, the music I'm trying to play, does that work for me?
Yeah.
And you have to experiment with that and just go, okay, that works, that doesn't.
Yeah.
And, try to go forward like that.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being like this thing of, everyone must do this. It's the whole thing of everyone must know all their scales and modes.
Yeah.
And yes, you must, but that still doesn't tell you how to play something,
Yeah.
you know, so you can play a D minor chord and go, yeah, well, you know, the theory and all the instructional things, whatever format, tells me I should play that D Dorian mode, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes further of like, oh, well, it's the second mode of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sort of give you any info about, well, what do I... You know, I'm not really playing... I'm just sort of playing my D minor stuff there. But
That's awesome.
It is that.
Yep.
It is that theory, but you can't really be thinking of that while you're playing.
Yeah.
And as soon as people got in the situation where it's a band and it's an ensemble, and there may be a cranky ensemble leader out the front going, why can't you do this? You know,
Yeah.
Don't you know a D minor chord? You know, and it just sort of turns into this whole musical coordination thing.
Yeah.
And so I really think that there must be other cues than those bigger theory things, simpler cues. Yeah. And you can learn from people who haven't been to jazz school. Yeah. There's not many now, but they're out there. Yeah. You know, and they work out a whole thing, you know, and you just go, well, you might have that chord and that shape is a cue to play something. It's an idea that you've learned, you know, or that version of it, and it's kind of a cue, you know, like there's a quicker connection than trying to do music theory while you're playing or thinking a lot. Yeah, before hearing that melody in your head is something that takes some time, isn't it? Where it's that split second where it's hard to describe, but you can sort of hear what you play before you play it. It's such an interesting area, you know, and people sort of try to formalize this and call it audiation and all that kind of thing, you know, like hearing what you play, and you should be able to hear everything you play and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just found that was too much pressure too. Right. I just think of it more like, you know, can I imagine something? Yep. Can I visualize it? Some people it might be visual. Yep. You know, I don't know, you just think of something to do. Like if you've worked on some sort of repertoire of ideas enough, they will just kind of pop in your head. Yep. Whether you can sing them or not, it does sort of it's just like, oh, I'll play that. Yeah. And I feel like that's what you want to happen in a really quick way, you know, sort of spontaneous way. And it depends on the kind of music too, that some music, you know, you kind of feel like you need to be inspired. I always think about that, like playing with blues bands and things, you know, you can't really phone it in with that music. You got to mean it a bit. Yeah. You know, whatever you play, whatever your idea is. So it's whatever it takes to get yourself sometimes into that position where you feel like you can do something. Yep. And, you know, I feel like the jazz thing's like that as well, or any kind of improvisation. Yep. You know, I don't know, maybe it's like trying to think of ways of just tripping yourself into playing. Yep. You know, so that however nervous you are or whatever's going on with your life, that you can, you know, somehow just find yourself playing. Let go, be in the moment. That's the hardest thing to do, because that's what we think is like young musicians too. It's like, oh, I'll get this stuff down and everything's going to be perfect. And, you know, and you sort of don't think of those situations 10 years later where the car's broken down on the way to the gig, or you've had a fight with your partner, or you didn't have time to eat, or the amp sounds like crap, or the lead's crackling, or all of those things, you know, can impact what you're trying to do. You know, you do meet the odd person who just seems to be able to switch all that off and get right in. But for most of us, it's like, okay, whatever's going on with everything else will affect how we're doing things. And so, you know, if you're going to do it professionally, you're going to have to somehow deal with that too, and just go, all right, well, somehow I've got to find a way to start playing some things. And you spent a lot of time in the 90s playing with some very good players, Helen Russell, John Rogers, Ken Eady. And you also got to see, and you were saying, sort of be inspired and influenced by local players like Phil Manning, Phil and Tommy. Man, I really think that trying to observe local players is very useful, because, you know, oftentimes they're in the same places where you want to play or you're going to play. So that's one thing too. You can just see how someone like that handles himself in a venue where you might be going to play. Right. Oh man, it was a revelation to see the Emmanuel brothers
Right.
I saw them in the Melbourne Hotel in South Brisbane.
That's so exciting.
They used to come to Brisbane and do duos.
Right.
A couple of mates and I, we had a little band. We didn't know who they were. Someone said, we might have been in a music store, and someone said, there's a good guitar concert. Oh, I could not believe it. The first song, I just hadn't seen guitar playing like that on a local level.
Right.
You know? And then of course you realise, oh, well, you know, they're utterly legendary. But there were people like Phil Manning also playing in places like the Storybridge Hotel.
Oh, well.
You know, I learned to fingerpick from watching him. Right. You know, I would just go in, that kind of blues fingerpicking, you know, like the whole sort of, it seems obvious, you know, thumb index, thumb middle. So much fingerpicking's built on that. But I don't know, I would go, I think on Friday nights if I wasn't playing and just sit there with a beer and watch. And then run home and try to do it. And one night it just clicked and I went, I see what he's doing. I see the pattern. And I raced home and I could do it. It's so different to like, you know, having someone painfully teach you what to do. Yeah.
You mentioned you played with loops for many years with Jonathan Diamond, Ken Eady and Jonathan Parker. And you were saying that after playing with them, it made you realise how little you knew about technique.
Oh, yeah.
How you had to reevaluate. Was that like actual playing technique, or you mean the way you think about music? Because I assume by that stage you were all over it, burning.
Well, yeah, a little bit of both. It was just running into something that I just had no background in, you know. And there were certain things of playing that I just couldn't do it. And I think it was a combination of sort of rhythmic insecurity, you know, tied up with a lack of just not thinking about technique. So I don't know, I definitely would go through phases of thinking about technique. Like I remember in the early 90s doing a lot of jazz transcribing and trying to do a lot of like arpeggio kind of exercises. And then I don't know, I think I hit kind of a folky phase. And just went, don't need that. You know, it'll just play itself if I know what to do. And that kind of approach has worked for me for a lot of things. You know, I will sort of say that to people sometimes, you know, in audiences who'll come up and go, how do you do that? And you go, well, if you just know the music, it sort of plays itself. And, you know, I had a few people go, that's so stupid. And it's sort of true. It's not playing.
I know what you mean, though.
It's not playing itself, but it's like, you know, you're not thinking technically. You're just kind of doing enough to make the stuff go.
I know exactly what you mean. Someone like Joe Pass, when you see him play standards, Stella, every time he does it, it's just so completely different. He must have known those tunes so well that, as you're saying, if you know the music, it will just play itself.
Again, you know, there's precedent for it. I saw musicians like Sydney, more famous guitarists like George Goller was like that. It's kind of an Australian equivalent of that. Just knew every tune possible and could play them in any key in lots of different styles with a singer faultlessly. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this tune in this key. I need a little introduction. And so that's like heavy because it's one thing to know the tune, but it's another thing to know it so well that you can take a bit of it and make it into an intro and make a whole thing of it. And I mean, I had started along that sort of road. I did a lot of arranging for people and that helped with it. But, you know, the whole technical thing about that other band then was that I hadn't really had any precedent for stuff that I was trying to do in that. And just to be rhythmically accurate, you know, you realise it takes a whole sort of different level of coordination.
I remember seeing you in 2008 for your reunion gig at the Conservatorium. And, blew me away.
Well, I'd figured out some stuff by then. It's like after that band finished in the early 2000s, you know, maybe the last gig or two, I'd had a little bit of time before it, around 2001 or two, and just went, well, I'm finally going to think about this and just rework what I'm doing. You know, and so I'd sort of evolved this whole kind of pub way of playing, if you like. That, you know, I was playing a Strat a lot and I'd sort of had my hand up high like this, away from the bridge. And I remember why I was trying to do it, because I was trying to get a lot of playing in trios and trying to get a lot of open strings going and just make a bigger sound.
Yeah.
Like any guitar will sound louder and bigger if you play away from the bridge like that, versus. But you could tell like I struck an open one there because it's just not not as accurate though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Acoustic guitars are like that as well. Like if you're not really clamping on the top or touching the bridge hard, it'll be louder.
100%.
But it's not necessarily as accurate.
Yep.
So anyway, I did a fair bit of work on that and that was one of the first times where I went, I'm just going to change it all. And since then, I haven't been afraid to just go, this isn't working, I'm going to change it.
On technique, spoken to past guests about their view on technique.
Mm-hmm.
You've taught a lot and you've seen a lot of people with different techniques.
Yep.
Is there everyone has their thing, but is there a sort of fundamentals you have to do to execute things well? I mean, last night I happened to look at Mel Haggard, finger picking. And the way he finger picks, I went, I don't know how you're doing that.
How are you doing that?
With 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And I went, most of us would struggle with that, but maybe he grew up without a teacher and that's just what he did.
Yeah.
Especially you're speaking to Dave McGuire about the right arm being in a certain way so you can pick effectively. But you've said like with loops, you tried to change technique, you're above the bridge and on the bridge. What are your thoughts on picking in particular?
Well, it's funny. I've never put myself forward as any kind of expert technically.
Yeah.
Maybe it's from seeing all those guitarists when I was younger. And even my first teacher had a very good right hand too, just one of those natural right hands that just seemed to be able to execute stuff. Yeah. I was never really like that. So I've tried to, if I've been teaching about it, just tried to say to people, well, here's a few different options.
Right.
Yeah. I do think sometimes that consistency will top efficiency.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's all those gypsy players who, that whole thing of like, if they change a string, they'll do a downstroke.
Yep.
So instead of going, like you might go up, down, up, down, up.
Yep.
Like alternate pick that kind of arpeggio.
Yep.
Which kind of comes reasonably naturally to me.
Yep.
Probably because of years not thinking about it,
right.
Your hand just falls into it.
Yep.
But, they'll go like up, down, 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 up.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily like a sweep, which is more like that as far as I know. I don't know much about sweeping either. It's just the fact that the hand is moving in that direction.
Yep.
And so they'll pick in that direction.
Yep.
I mean, because it's so consistent, it works.
Yep.
I feel like your muscles have a chance to learn it.
Yeah.
And then, because if you're not having that kind of muscular confusion, sometimes we don't even know that's happening.
Right.
Like there can be this sort of just confusion in your hands that like your brain might be clear and you go, I know what I want to play.
Yeah.
Why won't they do it? And it's because it's not consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a funny one because I remember being a student, everyone's like, oh, it's got to be like Al Di Meola, like so consistent and, up, down, up, down. And again, you kind of look at it and go, well, it works for him. Mm-hmm. I had real revelations like studying the flat pickers, like guitarists like Clarence White, if anyone knows who that is, kind of a precursor of Tony Rice, who died young.
Okay.
And man, they're not, he's not picking alternate picking. Yes, he plays very swift alternate pick passages, but he'll also do like, like down, up, down, up kind of things. And, there's some people in jazz who do that too. Yeah. People like James Sherlock, he does that, like he wouldn't call it sweeping, I don't think, but, they'll just be bits where the pick is moving in the same direction. Yeah. And because it's consistent, it's something that your muscles can learn and it's repeatable.
Right.
So that's, I'd probably say to people that kind of thing. It's more like, well, there's a lot of information coming at you about what you could do and you could try a lot of different things.
Yep.
But, the main thing you're going to need if you want to do it professionally is probably consistency.
Yeah, yeah. I remember speaking to Dave and Dave was talking about, he's, which he said that you sort of taught him, which he slows into notes. So he picks every second one. And he said to me, if I tried to alternate pick something like a metal thing, it doesn't come naturally to him. Yeah. Where I found picking came naturally to me, but I'm a horrible legato player. it's just not my thing. So you think working to your sort of strengths is a good thing?
It's it's definitely a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, I really feel like people can have a knack for various things.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I was really much, you know, people said I was good when I was a kid, but I think I had a knack, you know, like, and you might just have a physical knack for doing it.
Exactly.
Like doing other things, you know, like when you're a kid, you know. I was hopeless on a skateboard, for example.
Right.
You know, but it's still a thing of like you've got to work out what to do.
Yep.
And that legato thing was something that I had practiced at the time that I found helpful, and probably because it's really related to the music that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're trying to get a line to swing or a phrase to you know, there's a bunch of sort of legato things in there. You'd call them legato, but I just think of them like hammer-ons or pull-offs.
Right.
But placed quite specifically.
Right.
Like, you know, slurring into the beat.
Yep.
Rather than just a general sort of, you know, guitar kind of legato, which is like just doing some pull-offs to enable that.
Yeah.
I actually think that's clean.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty clean.
Yeah.
And I don't know, from good guitarists I've watched, a lot of them probably do a fair bit of that.
Yeah.
But they're so balanced between their hands that it's really hard to pick out, you know, exactly what is what.
Right. Yeah.
So obviously if the pick stroke is really hard and the slur is weak, then there's going to be this imbalance.
Yeah.
But in a strange way too, with the jazz thing, that's kind of what makes the swing pulse, right?
Yeah.
Because each note is not like a steady attack. Like there's a pulse to the attack.
Yeah.
You know, like, more than specifically trying to go, you know, like trying to make a definite sort of difference between the eighth notes. It's the pulse of the attack that seems to make it go.
I feel that's part of groove too, with swing, is that expression that someone like John Scofield has, how he slides into certain notes, which are then also picked, as opposed to, like you're saying, they're just a straight do-ba-do-ba-do, ba-do-ba, which might be horses for courses in a certain setting. But I think character in guitar players, people call it tone, that's definitely an interesting thing and part of guitar players' tone. Someone like Mark Knopfler,
fully
with fingers, it's a unique sound.
See, I remember even looking at him like back in the day and just going, how's he doing it? You know, like, and you can look at a lot of those young YouTube phenomenons now who are, you know, just doing the finger style, and you look and you go, man, it looks like he just, and this sound, you know, so it's like in people's ears, so they know what the music is, and there's a consistency in it. They've done it before.
Yeah. Thinking about improvising, I've asked some other people how they think about improvising, which I'm really interested in because I have my own thing that works for me now. But how do you? So we're vamping on a D minor 9 to a G7. Are you thinking about shapes, or as we spoke about before, are you just trying to let it all go and just see what comes out? Maybe you just play an F note for 4 bars and make something groovy out of one note.
Yep.
Do you have to play all the notes, you know, the arpeggios, the scales to make it work?
I don't know if there's any one way with that either.
Right.
And again, I don't see myself as any kind of expert on it. Okay. I've done a lot of it.
Oh, no, I know you're really good at it.
Yeah. So, you know, I think if there's a set melody or a set kind of theme to what you're playing, then that's a good place to start. Okay. You know, so these days more and more, and maybe that's the influence of the bluegrass and all the flat picking, because you know, the first thing to do is like learn the tune and see if you can execute the version of your instrument of that melody. Right. You know, for example, in that field, like most of the tunes are fiddle tunes. Right. You know, they originate on the violin. So if you're just playing like an open vamp kind of thing, then that's a whole other idea, right?
Right. How would you do an open vamp on it?
Well, that's a good question.
Pick any chord you want.
Oh, let me think. F minor, right? So. So I might just start, you know, playing the typical bluesy ideas of the moment. Okay. You know, hopefully, if you can become less self-conscious, some of those might evolve into things you're working on. So arpeggios that go across. So I don't know, kind of Pat Martino-ish kind of lines. Sometimes it helps to think about a particular artist.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's that whole imagination thing. If you can,
that's awesome.
If you can trip yourself into doing something and feeling less self-conscious, then that's like the goal.
Yeah. I learned that from you because jazz, we're trying to play a style, so you try to do the language, but then one of the things you inspired me with was actually going, you can actually do some Denny Gatton in there over that D minor 7, and you can play a blues lick into a chromatic lick.
Yep.
You can play the flat 9 if you make it musical. So
that's what people are. That's what people are doing.
Yeah.
I reckon that's what good improvisers are doing. Yeah. They've got like a bunch of things that they know they can do, or that they've worked over or whatever.
Yeah.
Recombining them in different ways.
Yep.
And then just thinking of inspiring things that that you like.
Yeah.
It's really good to have stuff that you like.
Yeah.
That you can then bring to something.
Yep.
And sometimes I think it, like I said, sometimes untrained players, untrained are good at that to observe, because you just go, man, I never would have thought of that.
Exactly. When you hear George Benson talk in interviews, it's always cool because he goes, yeah, I think it's a D7 flat 5.
Yeah, see, playing that vamp, I mean, you might be at a gig or something and you might go, oh, I'm George Benson, Yeah. I mean, I'm not. But I'm less afraid.
Right.
Because I'm sort of thinking, I had a moment or two there of just not being self-conscious, of just ripping some stuff out. Yeah. And that's fun.
Yep.
So you go, well, that's fun. That makes me think about what I like about music.
Right.
And if you play like that, I feel like you don't even have to be like a terrific performer or be playing sort of music that's overtly like, this is great entertainment, but people still go, I get a feeling from that.
Yeah. It's like Dave Gilmour. I mean, doesn't play a lot of notes, but
serious looking lad, you wonder if people went, why don't you smile more, Dave, when you're playing?
Like, you do good solos.
maybe they did. Yeah. But, it's because there's a whole atmosphere that doesn't require him to do that. It just requires him to be, to play his thing.
Yep.
And it's it's a style and a language that he's evolved.
It's singable too, isn't it?
Yeah, and memorable.
Yep.
Like you listen to One Brick in the Wall, and you just go, oh, beauty.
It's amazing.
Because, you wait for the first phrase of that solo.
Yep.
And, they say that about those English guys, like they got so much extra mileage out of basically blues rock language.
Yep.
And you can look at that solo, for example, and go, well, he's kind of playing the blues over it,
Yeah.
You could translate that language onto a Stevie Ray Vaughan song and it would fit.
100%.
You know, but it's like they just sort of managed to move it into this whole other area, which is like, I don't know.
It's psychedelic with blues.
Yeah. It's I don't know, just, I like this and I'm going to put it here.
Speaking of country music.
So,
you did win the National Flatpick Championship in 2011.
Quick guitar change.
Can't
deal with an archtop talking about flat picking.
Oh, yes, we do. So you won the National Flatpick Bluegrass Championship.
Yeah.
Talking about technique, how long, because you mentioned you transitioned to playing more acoustic in the early 2000s. Yeah. Bluegrass technique with the right hand. I don't know much about bluegrass.
Man, it took me forever. And I was always into it, like even from a formative age in the 80s, I was always trying to play acoustic guitar.
Right.
So, I had an awareness of all that. My mum had a lot of country records. I knew Flat and Scruggs. So, I knew about it.
Yeah.
But it just took me ages. And, man, again, it's just that kind of modern era thing. Yeah. Even the early 2000s, I remember listening to these Norman Blake records and it took about a year to realise he had a capo going.
Oh.
So I'm trying to go...
Oh, no. no.
And going, how does he get the guitar so loud and ringy?
Yep.
You know, how's he getting that to ring
Holding
like
a note
that?
down.
And then, you know, finally you go, and you go, oh, okay, there's a capo on the 3rd fret, and and then, you know, so slow on the uptake. But not many people around me doing it, so I didn't really have anyone to go, oh, you dummy, you know, put a capo on.
Okay.
You finally click, and then suddenly the whole thing, you can hear stuff, you know.
That happens a lot though. Neon with John Mayer. So I learned that, I was in grade 12 in 2004. I remember learning that. There was no internet. There was no YouTube. There was no live videos of him playing it. So we all learnt it, myself and other friends, one, you know, with like a classical style. And then he brought out a DVD like 5 years later. You're like, oh my God, that's how you're doing it, which was this obscure James Taylor alternating thumb and index finger.
Yeah, how are you to know?
Yeah, how do you know?
You just have to work it out for yourself. And sometimes in the working out for yourself, you may not particularly get to neon very well, but you might figure out how to do another thing or be able to apply it to something else.
Right.
Or write something, you know, like I think you got to accept sometimes, okay, it's led to somewhere that I hadn't expected it to go, you know, without, all right, you know, maybe I'm not going to be John Mayer or Norman Blake or something, but I've, you know, it's helped.
Also one that I remember, I'm not sure who it was it Denny Gatton or might have been Albert Lee, was emulating the slap delay but didn't realise it was a delay. And was trying to play delay as well.
Isn't that outrageous? Like just double picking so that it sounds like the delay.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I know, it's so mean. That video was pretty formative, actually. The Danny Gatton one. I know a lot of people who got licks off that.
Yeah.
And I still play a few to this day. And you can, you know, that's the nice thing about that sort of music. You can play them in kind of any kind of setting, you know.
Yep. Can we hear a little bit of bluegrass? So in 2011, what was something that you played around that time, or even now? What do you think?
Well, you know, I'd always just keep playing the same sort of fiddle tunes. Etc. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That is amazing.
Not really. It's
awesome.
It's okay. This guitar's protesting a bit.
I noticed your right hand. You're picking with a fist. Is that a bluegrass?
Hey man, I changed it.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months.
Okay.
Yep.
Pick with a fist now.
Well,
for bluegrass.
I mean, just general picking.
Yep.
It's like a little bit of that thing. So if people remember how I used to play, I'd sort of be a little bit more like that. I still do that sometimes. I don't know if people can hear that.
Definitely can hear it. Yeah.
It's just a little louder.
Yeah.
Like that's a little swifter. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've noticed bluegrass players when I've watched a lot of them pick with a fist.
Yeah, I've been seeing it too. Yeah. Well. I don't know. I really think like with techniques, sometimes it's good to go, I'm not replacing it. I'm not stopping doing this. I'm just adding this other thing that I can do.
Yep.
You know, so that way there's less pressure on you.
Yep.
If you find yourself at a gig and you just go, oh man, so I've just played most of that set how I don't want to play.
Don't want to happen.
Yeah, and it's just because it's that same thing of like the slight bit of pressure or large bit of pressure is enough to make you revert to a safe place while you're dealing with whatever is going on.
Yes.
I don't know. I think, like we said before, I actually think there's a smaller percentage of people who can just shut all that out and do the thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, versus most of us who are just like, oh, man.
Yeah.
You know,
people
are looking at me. There's a camera. Yeah. Steve's looking at me, you know. Like, you know, I feel like it took me like a pass or two before I just started to play a little bit, you know. So yeah, that can be a thing.
Yeah.
But if you do that, it's like, well, okay, I'm adding something.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I've been trying to add some stuff like there's a few kind of bluegrass things with some Doc Watson flat picking of this kind of thing. Yeah, it's slow, man. So the Doc Watson thing is like alternate picking that.
Right.
And I've just been going, well, what if I... Like it's different.
That's one of the most challenging...
That's combining techniques,
things.
right? Because I'm trying to go down, up, down, up, and then alternate. I'm actually going, well, downs, down, down.
Yep.
And then up, then alternating. You know, but if you're wanting to play...
That's seriously hard.
Well, it's kind of like, all right, I'm not replacing that. It's just like an extra thing I can do.
Right.
And there's all that, Tony Rice kind of things. If anyone looks on YouTube at Tony Rice playing Church Street Blues, it's actually from an instructional video.
Right.
It's like a miraculous couple of minutes of guitar playing and singing.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a bit in it where people talk about the wink, where he sings a line of a song and just casually gives the camera a little wink, and you just go,
Yeah.
That's just casual, like to sing and play like that with cameras and apparently with some freezing cold farmhouse in Maine or something,
Shut it all out.
Yeah, that's it, the thing. But, the stuff that he's doing, so that's like a slow version of it, but it's there's a lot of pick strokes in the same direction.
Yeah.
And then proceeds to sing. Yeah, it's a really kind of compelling, interesting way to play.
Yep.
And I don't know, I just went, I can't alternate pick that. It's not possible for a start. And then you sort of watch what he's doing and you're trying to slow the VHS down. And you're going, oh my God, like that pick stroke's moving in the same direction.
Yep.
But it's not like a sweep or something.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to learn that for the last few years, which is kind of a different sort of thing. And the horrifying thing is then you realise that people like him and Clarence White are doing it in the rhythm playing.
Right.
So the standard bluegrass strumming that people might know is like, down, so down, 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 up. But, like the standard strumming might be for those guys like... at high speed,
That's hard.
There's, what am I thinking of? That's good. Got that.
Yeah.
That one.
Oh.
Yeah, like to pull that off, it's just taken me yonks.
Yeah,
and it's, like if I was playing that as behind rhythm for somebody, I would just be going, which is like reasonably solid rhythm playing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's just all this different colour and accent to doing it that way. I've been trying to learn to do some of those things.
Alternate picking between strings on like a cross-picked section is so hard.
Just
popped into my head then, a lot of kids like to learn Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, which has that intro da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And for a long time I was saying, we got to alternate pick that. But then you watch Slash and it's like up, down, up, down.
He's not alternate picking, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's not like also that's a technique that he's gone, I have to learn this so that I can do this. It's just how he does it.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult thing about trying to do that yourself where you go, oh, okay, I see what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do it.
Yep.
Sometimes it's enough to make you give up, but then you can also go, well, how long did it take him to develop that technique to be able to do it?
Exactly.
So I've got to give myself a chance and,
Yep.
you know, maybe I just have to spend a couple of years trying to do this thing, adding it slowly to what I'm already doing.
Yep. On that, just a little bit off key, but when, you know, social media now gives us the show reel of, you know, I rolled out of bed and I did this in 2 seconds when, you know, truth be told, we don't know the story behind how much time someone spent learning how to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think always when I see things, I go, wow, I can see how much time and effort went into that. But as you're saying, like you can see him do it and take for granted that, like, yep, he just did it straight away. But maybe he's been spending, you know, 5 hours a day for 10 years trying to get better at that technique.
Yep. Yep. You know, I really think people, they just work hard on this stuff. And, you know, with that thing, like people do takes. It's just like trying to get the thing right, you know. And it could be, I mean, you know, there's other reasons for the guitar playing. It could be like I don't know, all kinds of, like the lighting goes wrong, like if you're out, you know, all those kind of things that can happen. Or there's you know, someone starts the car next door, like if you've done any kind of social, like, and I've done a little bit in a very low level, you know, you go, oh, I've got to try that again so I don't get the truck, you know, or the dog barked, or, you know.
Do you know David Gray?
Sorry?
David Gray?
I don't know his music.
Babylon is big.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Big UK artist, but there's a bus on Babylon that everyone thought was a sound effect. But it was a summer's day and he was still, you know, quite unfinanced, recording in his apartment. And the window was open. So, you know, halfway through that vocal take, sound effect, it's an actual bus that drove past. But it was a good vocal take, so they kept it.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about all this now, you know, like there can be these sort of happy accidents. It doesn't all have to be like studio perfection either, you know. And guitar's great for that too, because you can get a decent sound in lots of different settings in electric guitar. You know, they can set up in your kitchen and stick a mic on it and probably get a decent, you know, decent guitar sound. You know, I'm always struck how people use takes off the phone and things like that, you know. So
we have software now too that can pull background noise out. De-hiss and de-hum things.
I wish there was software to make my right hand more accurate, but actually, you know, there is. So
mate, it's awesome. Can we hear a little bit more?
Oh, really? Oh, my goodness. What's another thing to think of? Well, with that kind of music, you know, you end up playing in different kind of keys.
Right.
So there's like
a lot of open keys?
Yeah, a lot of open keys, and then using the capo, it pulls it in. So, you know, there's like a whole bunch of repertoire that would be built around it. Things in C. A whole bunch of things in D.
D and C is hard.
They are hard. There's a whole bunch of Tony Rice things that are really mean, you know, in that key. I like playing some of that stuff. I won't inflict singing on you, but, you know,
please do.
He'll play in that kind of thing and kind of, let's see. What am I thinking of? There we go. Oh, man, I'm blowing that. So, you know, like the intro of and the blowing of Blue Railroad Train, which is on the Manzanita album. I mean, man, that just took me yonks. You know, and there's different ways you can play all those things, like that phrase. There's all different ways of getting around that stuff. That, you know, sometimes guitarists like that will do unusual things. And if you can find the fingering of it. And I think a lot of the fun is trying to do it by ear. It's really hard to resist finding a video. There's another thing actually of his, there's a bluegrass album band thing, you know, where they're playing off that shape and he starts the solo, that sort of phrase. and then proceeds, they're going to an F chord, but he's kind of playing it, as far as I can make out, like sweeping up a G minor.
Right.
In F. It's, I don't know, that sort of thing. It's small details blow my mind with that stuff.
Yeah. Did you just economy pick that just all down when you did that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to work hard on it.
Yeah.
The company used to play that song, so it's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
It's called Age. It's on track 1, Bluegrass Album Band, 4th volume.
Yep.
You can't help getting a bit nerdy. But,
Love it.
man, so we used to play it and I would just go, well, I like it so much, I'm just going to play the Tony solo on the gig,
Great.
And, it took a long time to just be calm enough to get my right hand to do that.
Yeah.
Because there was no alternate picking it. I just can't alternate pick like that.
Right.
It's just vicious cross picking to alternate pick it. So, and, pulled it off. It eventually started pulling it off and just going, oh, okay.
Yep.
Just, and it's funny, like watching bluegrass guitarists, they're very calm.
Yep.
I was laughing my head off at, well, not laughing my head off, but do you know Billy Strings, the young bluegrass guitarist? People might know who he is. He's a bit of a young star.
Right.
He was playing at Lollapalooza, which is like a big deal for a bluegrass band. Yeah. And they come out and it's all like rock and roll and Billy Strings. And he comes out and he's holding the guitar, Yep. And it's like the count in and they kick into the first song and he was like, like just hit the classic.
Here's a serious face.
classic Clarence White pose. If you look at Clarence White, it's like very still.
Yep.
And like everything's being executed.
Yeah.
And I just went, man, that says it all, There's just something about how people are with that. They're quite serious about it and you just have to be calm and still to make an acoustic guitar ring acoustically. Yeah. Like a lot more people plug in now, but, the whole thing of it too with the company was we never plugged in.
Right, you're always recording
always on a mic. Yeah, so that was like, well, if I start playing hard, like the guitar actually gets quieter. It starts compressing hard.
Yeah.
And it feels like the guitar gets a little quieter. Whereas if it's a little softer or a little less fierce with the attack, the whole thing starts to open out a little bit and it rings better.
There's a sweet spot.
Yeah. So, that happens. Like first song you get up there and you're going to play some, banjo and fiddle going off and mandolin and you get up there and it comes to your break and it's like, oh, I'm so tight and nervous, and the guitar just gets softer and softer and softer.
Yes.
Yes. I really remember struggling with that too. It's an interesting thing to do because if you've got the single mic as well that everyone's singing with and, it seems like fiddle and mandolin will really kind of cane down a condenser mic.
Yep.
Guitar, not so much, probably because the sound is so spread and diffuse with a microphone. So
the tension of your hands go onto the strings, don't they? So if your right hand is tense, it translates onto the strings.
Oh, fully. That's what I think is really a technique thing. Sometimes I don't know if it matters that much about exactly how you do things, but if there's a lot of tension and stuff in your arm, and if you can see people who, like Brian Sutton, the famous bluegrass guitarist, who does a lot of instructional stuff, and I went through some courses of that too. And that was his big thing about the right arm. It almost wasn't like, oh, you need to be this angle or you need to be like this or whatever. It was more just like, I can see tension in your arm.
Tension, right.
And over time, that's going to clamp down.
Yeah.
It can clamp down on you physically, like just being able to move cleanly, but it also clamps down on the sound.
Right.
And we don't think about that so much with electric because, I mean, in a way, the way electric works, it seems to me, is like there's a certain amount of compression that comes in with like a fierce attack.
Yeah.
And you can blow it up the other end, It's like compressing any signal, then you can blow it up and make it bigger.
Yeah.
Like that. But, with an acoustic instrument, it's like a sort of too much tension really clamps down on the thing.
Strumming's a big thing I always notice with seeing someone strum with a locked arm and really hitting it hard, but sort of getting a whole lot of nothing out of it. Then they hit it with the weight of the hand and a loose wrist, and all of a sudden, bang, here's the weight. It's relaxed. It's sort of like hitting the meat of the guitar. It's weighted right, so you get this bigger sound.
Definitely.
And then as you're talking about with picking.
People can do it naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it has to be necessarily a learned thing. Yesterday, like I had a gig with this guitar. I was plugged in, but it was really I had to give this thing a bit of a truss rod tweak last night because it just is sensitive to the weather.
Yeah.
And I've got another guitar that's louder than this one acoustically, so I was kind of going, just not getting a sound, and it's sounding puny and quiet.
Yep.
And I'm doing that a little now. But I don't know, this kid came with his dad at the break yesterday and said, I love it. And I'm sitting there with the guitar and I went, here,
Yeah.
And I don't know, he just got the pick and the guitar and just sort of strummed a few G chords that he knew. And it was really just sort of open and relaxed.
Yeah.
And I kind of went, that guitar sounds pretty good.
Sounds good.
What's the matter with me? I'm really lucky to have it, and and that's just as like a kid, like an 11-year-old kid, but you're going, wow, like just naturally doing it, without any sort of real tension or something. The instrument sort of rings.
Tommy always talks about every time he picks up the guitar, it's different. Tommy Emmanuel.
Oh, yeah.
And
God.
I totally get that. Some gigs, you're like, what is going on? Other gigs, you're like, wow, it's really singing the guitar.
Yep.
It's hard to narrow down factors that are affecting, maybe like you're talking about what's going on in life, external factors that then, come into the guitar. It's interesting.
Oh man, well that was really informative. All those kind of years of sort of intense couple of years of playing with the company.
Right.
We did a lot of touring and a lot of gigging, and it was that kind of thing of like, I've got to get the guitar to come forward and ring.
Yep.
And I had a lot of trouble orally too, like because when you've got the single mic and everything's mic'd, you can't have fallback.
Yep.
And especially if you're just going from festival to festival, fallback just adds a layer of
problems.
Yeah, so that's kind of hard work in like a club setting, right? But there's a lot of noise. In a sort of quieter acoustic setting, it's great because it's just like everything's amplified.
Yes.
But I remember the first few gigs of that just being like, okay, this is terrible. I can't hear myself. I can't hear the guys.
Right.
I can't hear the guitar.
Yep.
I can't do nothing. I've just got to
play. And
I remember playing a break on something, and some people out here went, oh, that was nice. And I went, oh, man.
They can hear it.
They can hear me.
Yeah.
And it really was just like suddenly, and I went, they can hear me, and in fact, I can hear the guys.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can hear myself, and it's like a different sort of switch went on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for a while then, when I'd go back and play like electric gigs, it'd have to switch back on again when I came back to the acoustic thing. But gradually it just started to be like, okay, this is this and this is this.
Yep.
But I remember that being a really striking thing of initially just going, nah, can't do this. Nah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to get a pickup. I'm going to have to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to talk to the guys. Yeah.
Crowd feedback is sometimes can switch a thing where you think you're playing.
It's a shame.
That was good.
Yeah, it's a shame that it has to sort of seem like that ego thing of like, oh, I am good, But no, it's more just of, I am audible.
Yeah, you can't hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I am audible, and I don't know. You just sort of go, well, why? Why don't I hear it? Right. Everyone else seems to be.
Yep.
And I don't know. Maybe it's just years of. I don't know, maybe your ears just automatically go into some sort of protection mode because everything's going to be loud and intense, and when you're playing acoustically. That I'd say that to students a bit too, about the guitar itself and also its range, it's a useful realization that the guitar is a quiet instrument. We're used to electric guitar being the loudest thing in the suburb if we want. But it's just that idea of the guitar both in range and volume not being what we think it is. Like with electric guitar, you can be the loudest thing, in the suburb or in the club or whatever if you want. But an actual guitar is quite quiet. Like if you get a banjo or a mandolin or a fiddle in here, it's quiet. And it also doesn't take up the same sort of space that even like a double bass will. So there's that range thing too, like the guitar's quite a low instrument. It's a baritone instrument. It like that note is like a violin's open string. So you know, there's not much guitar left, and where there's a whole sort of range there.
Guitar ensembles are tricky to get volume from.
Very tricky.
I mean, a band will always drown out. You know, you notice concerts, guitar ensembles are always quieter perceivably than, say, string ensembles. They're a soft instrument, so even in numbers, it's tricky to get push in volume.
Yeah.
So I completely understand you standing around with a fiddle player, double bass player. That would probably be the hardest instrument to get to project forward.
Well, it's only a fairly recent thing that it became like a lead instrument in that field. Like it's mainly, you know, like a rhythm instrument. To rhythm, you know, and usually the guitarist was the singer too.
Right.
So that was their main thing. They would sing and play rhythm for everybody.
Yep.
So, you know, it's only really people like Clarence White, Tony Rice, Doc Watson, who, you know, really brought it forward that way. But, you know, I've chatted to people who've, you know, been lucky enough to jam with some of those big names, you know, like David Greer or Brian Sutton. And, you know, they always say, they're never as loud as you might think.
Right.
It's always very clear and beautifully executed, but the instruments themselves are not that loud. Sometimes you're surprised because you see someone's online thing and it's so powerful, but then when you see it in person, it's more of it's not quiet, you know, from what people describe. I've seen this a little bit too.
Right.
You know, like with some people I've seen at different festivals, touring artists or whatever. Yeah, you kind of have to lean in and listen, but once you start listening like that, a whole other thing opens up. Yeah. So I'm really glad I had the experience of all that because it changed the way I listen to things, I think.
So Company had 3 albums.
Yep.
And I do recall a solo from Trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Ripping solo.
It was okay. Yeah. Strangely, though, it's that thing of going, well, I don't want to just spray a bunch of bluegrass licks around.
Right.
So there is some of that in there, but also just a few things where I draw on some jazz stuff.
Yep.
Strangely, you know, I think it's in D or something, and there's a phrase like something like that. You know, whereas
I love that.
Drawing from the
so
jazz
good.
thing a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, there might even be a little Larry Carlton, strangely. People know the Kid Charlemagne solo. It's probably hunks of that.
Yep.
I just find that amusing.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, that's just I don't know. And then really typical, that's it. And actually, strangely, I realised later, I think the song's in probably more like a D minor, but I just played like a... like a major sort of phrase.
See, that's so cool because when I hear that last, where you do go to the minor third, it makes me go, It's like,
well, I'm glad that I just did it. It was nice because I did it kind of not really self-consciously.
Right.
I just put some things together.
Yeah.
You know, which is, again, that whole thing of getting away from the trained thing of like, this is what I should do. Yeah. This is what people have told me to do.
Yep.
This is the information I'm getting thrown at me.
Yep.
Which is different to like, well, I'm here.
Yep.
None of those people are playing the guitar on this evening in this band.
Yep.
I'm playing the guitar on this evening in this band.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, maybe there's a dozen people who could do it better than me, but they're not here. They're at their other gigs.
And that's all that matters, I think, is that you're the one doing it. You know, you're doing a job. You're being paid for it. You've played a solo and 6 people have just looked at you and gone, awesome.
That makes me feel good.
So,
yeah.
I mean, how is it wrong? You know, how is it?
That's right. Yeah. In the end, you're in that way you are being an entertainer. You know, it's like it's just making someone feel good about something or whatnot.
Feel happy.
You know,
Yeah.
Providing a bit of a service or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's a strange one because I feel like I've also been really quite selfish about music. You know, I've just been, I just got to play how I like. And, you know.
But I think your character, if you do that, if you play what you like and you vibe with it, hopefully someone else will vibe with it too.
Yeah.
I think Noel Rodgers said that when he was talking to Avicii. Avicii was showing him Wake Me Up, which was that hybrid of like bluegrass with doof, EDM, and Rodgers was in the studio and he said, oh yeah, man, I reckon if you vibe with that, someone else is going to vibe with that. And I think it's very true.
Yeah, fully.
Someone will vibe with your jam. Like it's...
Definitely. Yeah. It's it's a very strange thing. I don't know. I anything that I've tried to do where I've just been like, oh, this will be a success, and been really tried to be deliberate about it, just hasn't done anything.
Right.
It's just like, no, that's not going to work.
Too much thinking.
Yeah, but anything where I've tried to go, well, I'll follow this through. I'm interested in this, and these people are interested, and they like that I'm interested in them.
Yep.
So, we'll see if we can do something together. I might learn something, It's surprising. Like I was saying, like you were talking about Women in Voice, it was just like a little folky show.
Right.
In a little cafe in West End, it started out with a bunch of local singers who wanted to do something other than their regular bands.
What was Women in Voice? I don't know much about that, but I've heard that talked about a lot.
It came out like a cabaret show, and that was the initial premise of it, that a group of women who were all in these different bands and different projects, and they wanted to just do something that was different to what they were doing.
Right.
So they all got together, and I was just around, so I just accompanied them.
Yep.
Doing all this wild selection of songs, crazy stuff. And I mean, it just went from that till it felt like I woke up, 15 years later or something.
Yeah.
And
still going.
You're on stage in QPAC,
right?
And there's a band, and there's like 1,000 people sitting out there, and these women singers in fabulous gowns are kind of wafting down these steps with this big sequence, and and you're just going, how to get to this?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and it really is just the fact of I don't know, just interested and engaged and trying to do something that you can do now, not like living like, one day I'll be able to do this, or one day I'll be able to be like this, or one day I'll have this guitar, or, one day I'll have this amp. And I don't know, that's just never worked for me, because it's like sometimes even when I get the guitar, it's like, oh, okay, I'm still me, and then sometimes it's like, well, now I have this guitar, but there's nowhere really to play it. So I have to make something happen where I have a vehicle to play this instrument. Which gets back to that thing of like, I just have to figure out something to do to make it, to give it a vehicle to play this stuff. Yeah.
I remember that very vividly when I used to buy new guitars, and my partner would say, okay, so where are we using this guitar now? So, it's, Speaking of playing, can we play a bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What do you want to play?
What do you fancy? Some bluegrass, some jazz?
Oh, I'll get my other guitar back.
I'll make sure
come on, let's play some blues and G.
Blues and G?
Yeah.
How fast?
Oh, I don't know.
Jazz blues?
A medium thing. Well, let's see if we can do a little bit of what we were talking about.
Yep.
Kind of mix up a few bits and pieces.
Something like that? Okay.
Something like that. Go on. Go on. That's it. Play some of that country. Come on. Ooh.
Oh,
can do it again.
Yeah. Sorry. That's unreal. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Jamie Clark.
Thanks.
Absolute guitar legend.
Oh man, I like that kind of thing where people
awesome.
mix it up.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're going, well, gee, I don't know if I can play that tune. What is it? Tenor Madness in this key.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
had to think a little hard.
Yeah.
Missed it the first time. You know, like it's more fun to try to mix things up.
100%.
That's why I was going, man, come on, give me some of that Telecaster.
Well, I play a lot of country blues in G all the time, though.
Yeah.
But I haven't played a jazz blues in
Well,
G for a while, and then it throws me a
yeah.
curveball, and it's that, you know, if you haven't done it for a while, it can...
That's an interesting thing. I remember even that in the 80s of being like, well, I have all this stuff that I could play in E, like a blues in E or a blues in A or something.
Yep.
But then I play a whole different thing in B flat.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
You know, why can't I make the B flat stuff sound mean like the open key things? And why can't I make the open key things sound swinging like the B flat stuff? And so when you start getting into that, it's really loads of fun.
Oh yeah, and that's the challenge for guitar is that we have open strings you know, assisting, but then flat keys, don't have open strings.
There's things available in them that aren't there for the other stuff. So you know, it's all very interesting. There you go. I did the Danny Gatton.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
It's a great one.
Oh,
it's
brilliant.
Useful. Yeah.
You showed me that.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Well, it's not me.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Totally my pleasure, man.
What's the plan for the future? Where can we catch you playing a gig?
Well, I've joined this this R&B band called Peaches and the Alphasonics. I've been doing a few gigs with them, which is good fun to dust off some of this stuff actually. And it's exactly that challenge because one second you're playing like a jump blues in B flat, and the next thing you're doing like almost like a rockabilly thing in E.
Okay.
And so you want to sound like you mean it in both areas. If you know what I mean. I'm doing a big project for a singer, Adam James, later in October, which is going to be a really cool thing. That's coming up. You know, playing around.
Brilliant.
That's all I can say.
Oh. So we can find you
I have an album. Yes, I do have an album.
Yeah, you have a new album on Bandcamp.
It's on Bandcamp. It's a lot of acoustic guitar stuff. It's not. It's bluegrass related and jazz related, some of it.
Yeah.
Improvisatory, a bit of it too. Yep. So it's an interesting little project.
And we can find you on social media at Jamie Clark
Jamie
Guitar.
Clark Guitar, I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a Bandcamp thing as well, Jamie Clark.
And Bandcamp.
Don't be mixed up by all the other Jamie Clarks. There's several.
Yep. So Clark with no E.
No E.
No E. Yep. Folks, and I'm sure there's lots of guitar players out there in Brisbane that are watching. that you've taught. So, mate, thanks again for all
well,
your help
everyone.
teaching us. And,
I always feel like everyone wants their Darth Vader moment. all students are like, your power's a weak old man.
Oh, your power's a strong old man. No, you're not old. No.
So I'm glad when they come for people.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah. Mate, thank you so much again.
Good on you,
Absolute
Steve.
pleasure. Thanks
for
so
having
much.
me.
Yeah, hope to get you on again soon.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Lovely.
Thank
Thanks.
you.